welcome everyone to today's discussion about the new and exciting release updates for the month of May. This has been months in the works, so we're very excited to introduce Katalon Studio 8.0 as well as Katalon TestOps to you. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce today's presenters from Katalon team. Let's get started with myself first. My name is Daisy Huang. I'm the VP of Sales here at Katalon. So what I do is I focus specifically on the go-to-market motion of Katalon Studio and make sure that our community of users, our prospective clients and existing client base can adopt Katalon and then also get a value quickly. So with me today, we have Cody Rosenblatt, who's our CTO and who has been on our multiple webinars in the past. Cody, would you like to say hi to everyone on the webinar?
Sure. Hello, everyone. As Daisy said, I'm Cody Rosenblatt, Chief Technology Officer at Katalon, and I work with our engineering teams to bring new features like we're going to talk about today to our customers. And I get to spend some time talking with customers and hearing about their challenges and seeing how we can help. So I'm always interested in that, and I'm looking forward to talking to everyone today.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Cody. All right, it looks like we have a few more people joining still. For those of you who just joining us, welcome to the webinar. So let's move forward to talk about the agenda of the conversation today. So we have just completed a high-level introduction about Katalon. Next, Cody will walk you through some of the exciting updates regarding TestOps and Katalon Studio, and we have spoken about that briefly in the past. We'd like to focus on later some of the native integration with Azure DevOps for end-to-end traceability. We'll talk a little bit more about, in particular, parallel test execution to accelerate execution time and generate earlier feedback. And once we have got a chance to review and talk about some of the high-level overview of these features, Cody and I are going to do a deep dive demo so that you could visualize how these would look and then also function within your workflow. And then last but not least, obviously the goal of the webinar today and many webinars that we'll continue to do in the future is to hear from you. So if we're going to open up some time at the end for Q&A, we have some of the representatives from our product team here as well, who will be assisting you with your questions and your inquiries. So what you will see within your control panel is that there's a Q&A box, and that is where you're going to be using to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. If anything comes to mind, and then we will be reviewing those during the Q&A session. Okay, so let's get started with some of the overview of Katalon. There's many of you here who might be very familiar with Katalon already, probably have used it for years, but some of you might be very new and just started with your automation process recently. So with that, I'm going to just very quickly walk you through a quick introduction about Katalon as well as our product suites. So as you can see here within the screen, we are all-in-one end-to-end test automation solution for API, for web, for mobile, and for desktop. And our key advantage is that we focus on accommodating teams and projects of any size, any scale, from creating tests, execution, reports, orchestration to seamless integration with CI/CD ecosystem, which we'll be able to see a little bit today. On the actual bottom here, you will see that Katalon covers a wide range of test environments, from the latest Android to iOS version, to Firefox, to Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, as well as the new Edge running on Chrome as well, Chromium as well. And also we're key in terms of testing cross-browser and cross-devices. So we support not only Windows, but also Mac OS and Linux. So one of the things that we'll be talking in particularly about today is how we'll be able to accommodate certain cloud services such as Azure DevOps, AWS, etc. And the goal of that is to allow our users and you in particular to build the core foundation to deploy automation testing to cloud DevOps. So just a high-level introduction about Katalon and what's within our product suites. I'm going to move to the next slide where Cody is going to walk you through an introduction in terms of what's new, what's exciting within Katalon Studio and Katalon TestOps.
Thanks, Daisy. So first of all, we'll talk about what's new in TestOps. And these are all features that are in TestOps today, and you can sign up to check them out. One of our newer features is Pytest integration. And you may or may not realize that Katalon TestOps integrates test results not only from, of course, Katalon Studio, but also from many other test frameworks. We've already integrated a number of JavaScript frameworks, including Mocha, Jasmine, and others. Pytest is our first Python framework. So now we can accommodate your Python test into our workflow as well. We've also added some new Kobiton integration that will help you associate your automated tests running within TestOps with specific Kobiton devices within Kobiton's device cloud, allowing you to run your tests on devices that you may not have or new devices that you haven't been able to get access to yet. And you can get those through our partner at Kobiton. And finally, and the thing that I'll be demoing today, we're rolling out parallel test execution in TestOps. If you've used Katalon Studio, you know that when you run a test suite collection, you have the opportunity to run that either sequentially or in parallel on your desktop. What I'll show today is how that feature and really more gets translated into TestOps so that you can run a test suite collection in parallel and shorten the overall time for completion of a test by running across multiple servers. And that's all to reduce the overall time to confidence that you can have to deploy your next software release. Because I think we all have experienced or maybe experience on a regular basis that question, when are the tests going to complete? When can we push this out to production? When are we going to know that it's safe to do? So that's our goal there. And next, we are also releasing a new version of Studio. We have released a new version of Studio in Studio 8.0, and it has a number of new capabilities in addition to all the things that it's built up over the years. What Daisy's going to demo today is our native integration with Azure test plans. And we've found a number of our customers, many of our customers are starting to use Azure DevOps and its suite of capabilities. And we'll talk about some of the capabilities that we already support and where test plans fits in there. But today you'll see Daisy show how we can connect Katalon Studio to your Azure Azure test plans and get updates automatically on the status of tests within Azure DevOps. We'll also show how we've made it easier for you to reuse desired capabilities across projects. So these are the features that you use when you're testing against various Selenium grid, either your own in-house or Selenium grids hosted by Katalon partners like BrowserStack, Sauce Labs, Lambda Test, and others. This will let you take desired capabilities and share them across projects because those can be complex to set up, and we think this just makes things a little bit easier. And in that same spirit of making your experience testing and building test suites easier and more pleasant, we have improved the performance of the IDE, in particular with large projects. So we're finding that we're able to decrease loading time for larger projects by up to 60%. So that means, quicker switching between projects, faster start time to, add new tests to that project that you've been working on. So with that, we're going to take a look at one of those improvements to TestOps. But first, I'm going to give a little overview of TestOps because perhaps, probably everybody has not looked at TestOps today. And TestOps is our newest product. We released the first GA release in February of this year. And it's a platform for orchestrating executing and analyzing test results. And what you can see is that we allow you to plan the execution of your tests. Also, input the plans and execution of tests from systems you may already have in place, like your CI/CD systems. We collect data from the execution of those tests, and you can see along the left side that we support data collection from Studio, obviously, but also from a number of different Java, JavaScript, Node.js frameworks, including Jasmine, Jest. I mentioned Mocha, and now new one, Pytest. And then you'll also see today some of our test execution capability. We allow you to execute tests within a local environment using our Katalon agent. We can also deploy that into a Kubernetes cluster of your own, if you have one, or into a cloud Kubernetes environment like Amazon EKS. We also support Circle CI, and you'll see some other options coming out from Katalon throughout the year. And finally, we won't really look at this today, but we take all that data and the insights that we get from it, and we're able to send that to you. Obviously, you can look at it in TestOps, but we also can notify you through various feedback mechanisms, including email, the tried and true, but Slack, we can update Jira tickets and GitHub as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about the way test suite execution worked in the past, and then we'll flip over to see how it's going to work, or how it can work in the future, because we support two modes. What we're showing here is how you can have a test suite collection. A test suite is just a group of test cases, and then you can group a test suite into a collection that runs those test suites in different profiles or across different browser types or device types. And that's what we're going to see today. What happens in the sort of default case is, as a test suite executes, it executes each test in sequence and executes each test suite in sequence. So the total time required to execute your entire test suite collection is sort of the sum of all those times. What we're going to see next is that we can do that faster if you have the resources, by allowing you to run all of that in parallel. So I think that takes us into our demo. So you should all see now a screen with Katalon Studio at the top, and a browser behind it, and a terminal. I'm going to show you a test suite that's been set up to sort of show effectively how this parallel execution works, and we're going to walk through the whole step. This is videoed primarily because I'm going to zoom through parts of the execution, because at the end of each step, I'm delaying for 60 seconds, as you saw there, to sort of show how we can get around long-running tests. But I'm going to run this test suite collection across Chrome, Firefox, and Chromium, and it's going to run 3 tests in each test suite, and then 3 versions of the test suite in the collection. And I just pushed that up to TestOps. And now I'm going to configure it first to run sequentially. So you'll see I've already set up my parallel execution sample, and I'm going to rename this one to say sequential. So we'll know that this run was configured to just run sequentially. And I'm going to, as I mentioned, we have a number of choices for environments, but I'm going to run on a local environment, and I'm going to allocate it to one of my agents. And I'm going to run our latest Studio version. And I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to schedule another test run that I'm going to run in parallel. So it's the very same test suite collection, but I'm going to run it in parallel. And to do that, I pick my execution mode, and then I tell the system how many nodes I want to allocate to it. So the optimal for this one would be 3, because I've got 3 tests and 3 suites running. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first run our sequential execution, and we'll see how that runs. And what we're going to see is that it's going to be running, as the name suggests, right? Each test in sequence. And so the total time to run this should be around 10 minutes because we run 3 tests. They each pause for a minute at the end. And then we run them 3 times across the 3 browsers. So you get 9-ish minutes plus some. What I'm showing you here at the bottom in those terminal windows is just, I have 3 agents up and running. In this case, we've allocated to the first agent. Sometimes I have 4. That's why it says 1, 2, 3 of 4, but I don't have the 4th running right now. So you see what's happened here is I've started my sequential run. That's what the spinning diagram shows. And in just a minute, you're going to start seeing browser windows pop up. There you go. So obviously what's happening now is our Katalon runtime is driving this browser session. We just ran into that 60-second wait now. And this is just to demonstrate a long running test. You wouldn't normally put a wait in your test unless you're a masochist. But what we're going to wait for now is for this to finish, and we'll see the first of our test results come in. We'll see a pass come in under that green P. So what we're showing here is the name of the test. It started about a minute ago. We don't know how long it's going to take yet. And currently we don't have any results, but that's pass, fail, error, and incomplete. We'll give it a couple more seconds. It should tick off the 1. And after we get our first result, I'm going to fast forward through the rest of the test. So those take about 10 minutes. We obviously don't want to spend all of our time watching that. So you're about to see things accelerate a little bit. There you go. You can see the spinner speed up there. We've got 3 passes. We've got some more windows coming up. I had to drag some of these off my other screen. That's why you see them flying through. We're up to about 8 minutes. 7 results in. We hit 10 minutes and we're just about done. So that was the last one. So we just finished that. So now I just kicked off the parallel run. And what you'll notice when I dig into this run is that TestOps has gone ahead and split that 1 test suite collection into 3 sessions. And each of those sessions can run on a separate agent. So you can see that session 76 has started already. You saw the agent running down below in the terminal windows. We're still waiting on the 2 other agents to pick up 77. Well, it looks like 77 has started already. You can see that actually over on the left in the terminal window. And we should get some logging coming through. There we go. So now we're going to look back, and 78 is running as well. So now we've got, in contrast to our earlier sequential execution, where everything ran one after the other, we've now got 3 separate test sets running. And TestOps did that split on its own, and then it allocated them to our available test execution units. So again, like in the sequential version, we're going to see windows start to pop up. But in contrast to well, I had to drag this one off my laptop display too. But in contrast to the sequential version, what you'll see is that we've got not just Chrome or Firefox or Chromium running, but we've got all 3 running at the same time. And again, we're going to wait until we start to see our results come in. And then we speed up. And we're going to kind of zoom through the rest of our versions. We're up to 3, 4. And you can see the time is progressing not as fast as the passes. So it's only been 4 minutes. We've got 6 tests have passed, 7, 8, and it's only been 5 minutes. So I'm going to pause for a second and just point out, I'm going to go back a little bit because I kind of did that fast. I'm going to point out something at the end of this run, and that is that we've now had the sequential run and the parallel run both complete. They both use the exact same test suite collection, but you can see that the sequential run took 10 minutes and 27 seconds to execute. And that is because of the math, right? It ran 3 tests. Each test took a minute-ish, and it ran those 3 times. So it's about 9 minutes, give or take some extra time to run some of the tests and perform some accounting. In contrast, the parallel run, running that exact same suite, only took 4 minutes. And that makes sense because each of these individual test suite collections within test suites within the test suite collection only takes about 3 minutes-ish to run. So, that might not be a big difference between 10 minutes and 4 minutes, but in the real world, if you've got an hour-long test sequence that is split up and you can turn that into 20 minutes or 15 minutes, that can make a real difference. So I'm going to pick back up. If I drill into this parallel run, you can see each of my executions. You can see each of my test suites and how they ran. And I'm going to go back and do the same for the sequential run. And you'll see mostly the same data, except there was only that one session, but I get all the same test suite results. And then if we zoom back out, I'm going to pause again and just show, this is a graph of the execution time for these tests over time. So I did this 4 times, 2 examples of sequential and parallel. And you can see, here we've got a sequential run that took about 10 minutes, and then we had a parallel run take about 4 minutes, and we had that happen again. So, that in summary is what this is all about. Is, in the real world, you'd figure out, how you want to run this. You can run it in parallel, and you'd start reducing your test execution time as your standard configuration. And it's a pretty neat capability, I think. Just recapping what other new capabilities are in there. We just looked at parallel test execution. You've got Kobiton integration to help you more effectively target devices within a Kobiton device cloud, and new Pytest integration to join our existing integrations with Jasmine, Jest, Mocha, and you'll see more to come. We're going to integrating other test platforms and frameworks into TestOps is a big part of what we're doing. And so, we'd love to hear from you if there are things you want to see in particular. But you'll see some stuff that we've got in our heads already.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the detailed walkthrough, Cody. That was very insightful for me in particular, and I hope everybody also got some value out of that as well. So with that, I'm going to move forward to walk everyone through some of the highlights with Studio 8.0. And it's one of the, I guess, many very exciting changes, in particular related to Azure DevOps. So let's get started with just high-level walkthrough in terms of a typical workflow in Azure DevOps. Many of you are familiar with these cloud services, and perhaps many of you are integrating with this as part of your current workflow already. But this slide walks us through a typical workflow in ADO. Azure DevOps provides developer services to plan work, to collaborate on code development, and also to build and deploy applications. So there's many standalone services that you might have already been using. Let's say Azure repositories, which we will talk a little bit about later. It provides Git repositories or team foundation, version control for source control of your codes. Azure test plans in particular, which is the main theme of the conversation today. It has different tools to test your apps, including manual, exploratory testing, and also continuous testing. And Azure Pipelines in particular provides the build and release services to support continuous integration and then also delivery of your application. So all in all, out of these 8 different standalone services, we're going to take a look at what we already have actually with Katalon Studio. So before Katalon Studio 8.0, what you see here is Katalon Studio has established integration with 2 of the key components. Number 1 is Azure repositories and also Katalon Studio. And this actually could be enabled through the Git integration inside Katalon Studio. And the goal is, allow you to increase collaboration and productivity among your team members. So this has long established and similar to Azure Pipeline. The current integration, or I guess the long established integration between Azure Pipeline and Katalon Runtime Engine in particular allows user to trigger the run of Katalon tests in in Azure Pipeline. And so there are many reasons why we would like to further enhance our integration between Katalon Studio and Azure Test Plans and making sure that's a native integration. So with that, there are a couple of reasons, but number 1 is on requirement traceability. So for example, if a manual test case is created in Azure Test Plan, which is later linked to an automated test script in Katalon Studio, we want to make sure that the results of the execution will automatically reflect in the test case outcome of Azure Test Plan. So that's number 1. Number 2 is it will allow you to understand automation level of your manual test cases. So what that would mean is when you run an automated test script on Katalon Studio, the relevant test run will include like a property with the automated tag on Azure Test Plans. And then most importantly is interoperability. It allows businesses to increase different integration, synchronization among the different systems. So the 2 key different changes with ADO test plans with the native integration, and I'm going to go into the demo very quickly after this. So 2 main things that we wanted to highlight within the demo. Number 1 is it allows you to map the manual test cases in ADO to automated test cases in Katalon Studio for you to understand which test cases are automated. So there are steps regarding integrations and setting up, mapping the different test cases and the results of the test cases. All of that information can be found within the documentations that we have released. And number 2 is how do we automatically create test runs and test results in Azure Test Plans when executing. And as part of execution, right, you should be able to see test execution logs and reports from Katalon Studio to test run in ADO and how you can use that as test artifacts. And in the future, you could use that for debugging or making sure that you have full understanding of your quality knowledge. So with that, with no further ado, I'm going to jump into a demo here quickly. And we're going to go straight into the actual ADO pipeline as well as test plans. Again, for the sake of time, we're not going to talk about the setting up the integrations and then also, the test artifacts mapping and test configuration mapping, but we will showcase directly on Azure. Okay. So in particular demo, what you will see here is we're on Azure DevOps. We're clicking on the pipeline in particular, and then system will automatically open the pipelines. You can choose to go to edit certain pipeline here. So what we do allow is we allow users to dynamically change the test run information on the CLI. So Katalon support user to change the test plan ID that you see that I'm highlighting here. You can also change and update the test run name in particular, and then also the build number of a test run. All of this information can be updated through using command line. So once you have updated all of this, you can click on save and then also commit directly to the master branch here and then click on save. So once I have this ready, I'm going to click out here. As you can see, I'm going to start running. So just quickly here, I'm opening up the running the automation script. And on the left-hand side and on the middle part here, you will see the different steps and progress within my running. So just a couple of things as I'm highlighting. Number one is related to the download KRE package here. When running the automation script, if you download the plugin from the marketplace in particular, for Katalon Studio as well as Azure DevOps, you will not need to download the KRE package or the Katalon Runtime Engine package. The extension will complete that action for you automatically. And then also, very interestingly, it allows you to select the version of Katalon Runtime Engine that will be downloaded as well. So when you're running this in the command line, we highly recommend you to use a command builder to generate the different commands as well. Looking at the log here, you will see that there's continuous communication between Katalon Studio and Azure shown directly on the log. So coming up shortly, we will show you the information that Azure is highlighting. So in particular, what kind of test run is created when the execution is finished. So let me pull it up to that quickly. So I'm just going to pause on this quickly. And you can see that all of this information related to Azure information. So for example, when are they updating test case result? What kind of file logs? When are they completing the test run, for example? All of this information will be available. And this is actually reflects the configurations that you as users have previously defined. So for example, which attachments will be sent when a test case passes or fails, or any further configurations that you have previously set up. So as you can see, I'm highlighting it here. You can see that there's also a URL in particular generated for the Azure test run as well. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to click out here and just view the details of the recent test runs as well. So I just opened my Run Explorer. You can see information related to my test build, any attachments, the outcomes of the particular test runs as well. And let's say for the case that we did just now related to lawn test runs, you can see the information at very high level in terms of the tested build. And for example, what are the attachments that we have predefined as part of configurations, the outcome by priority, etc., as well as any other related information such as the duration, configuration, etc. So one of the things that we also talked about briefly is how do we link this back to the test case within Katalon Studio as well. So what you'll see here is I'm highlighting the test case ID, which is 119. So you'll see that there's a new tab, which is the integrations tab here as part of scripting your test cases. So this tab is actually only available when you complete the integrations between Azure DevOps as well as Katalon Studio. So as you can see, I'm mapping and verifying the different test case ID here and making sure that it matches. There's also a button here that allows you to verify as well. In the future, when you would like to verify a test case, you can verify also multiple IDs as well, just by, or map to multiple IDs by putting in the different IDs here and then separating them by a comma, for example, and then just click on verify just to check if the test case ID exists in ADO for mapping in the future. So that's it in terms of a very high level overview here. So any of the further information you can also view within our documentations. And from that, any further questions, feel free to create or to submit within our Q&A as well. So that's it in terms of the ADO integrations. Studio 8.0 also comes with many other exciting capabilities. And I think Cody has also touched upon previously. We talked a little bit about the native integrations with Azure test plans. You can eliminate manual imports of your KS test results, and then also to increase your traceability. But there's two other capabilities that we would like to highlight as part of 8.0. Number one is reusable desired capabilities across projects. So previously, for any desired capabilities, you have to manually define them in each project. It could be quite time consuming. And with that, Katalon Studio has rolled out this effort to make sure that you can reduce your manual effort, making sure that you can reuse your configurations faster, and then also less error prone. So, previously with other versions, we have talked about private plugins, test artifact sharing as well. And this latest release is going to complete that feature set of reusing test data, which is very exciting. The next piece is IDA performance for larger projects. And you may know that Katalon Studio, we store custom keywords in individual files. Especially for projects with hundreds and thousands of test cases and hundreds of custom keywords. This is going to be extremely beneficial for you because previously, every time you open a test project, Katalon Studio needs to parse every single custom keyword, which means the more custom keywords the project stores, the longer it takes to finish opening that project. So with the improvement that we have made, we cache the keywords parsing result. And because of that, we, for the second time onward, anytime that you open a project with hundreds and thousands of custom keywords, loading time should be reduced by at least 60%, which is extremely beneficial for scaling teams with larger projects. And so that's it in terms of the new items within Katalon Studio. So now we have 12 more minutes. I would like to open up this for any Q&A. Again, thank you everyone for having submitted Q&A so far. You can utilize the Q&A button within your control panel and then submit your questions there. We have members of our product team here as well to answer any questions that you might have. Cody, would you like to run through some of the questions?
Yeah, that'd be great. So the first one I'll take is from Hontran, asked, wondering if there are any sessions or webinars that will focus on integration of unit test with TestOps in the near future. So I mentioned several times that we support Jest, Jasmine, etc. And the answer is yes, be on the lookout. We will be, I don't think I have the date yet, but we'll be running some webinars on those. And I'm excited to see those. I think it's something I really want people to know about and know that TestOps is there for them, not just to see what's happening in their Katalon Studio tests, but in their entire test environment. So let's see what else. There is a question that we are currently using Katalon Recorder. This is from Kevin Carnell. We're currently using Katalon Recorder. What will we need in order to do this? I think that's probably a question. Oh, sorry, I read that as Katalon Studio. For Recorder, you would need, all these features are Studio and TestOps features. Recorder is obviously part of our platform. It can export into Studio format, so you can take a Recorder script and import it. And yeah, really, if you wanted to, you could go from Recorder to Studio and then into TestOps. We don't currently have a sort of direct Recorder to TestOps configuration, but that is an interesting thing to think about. Let's see what else looks promising. I'm gonna read this and then sort of think about it. This is from Sheikh. Another question is how we can use an automated system where I'm testing a web application and I need to put in an ID and Katalon needs to grab the ID from a generator and put it there. Okay. The way I interpret that is if I'm running an automated test and I need to get special data from somewhere, how can I do that? That Sheikh, feel free to ask another question if this doesn't get to it. But the thing that comes first to mind is our support for data-driven testing. So you can connect Katalon Studio up to a number of different data sources, CSV files, Excel files, databases. And we even have our own internal format that you could use to be the source for the ID that you need to type in your automation. You could also, I don't know what type of ID this is, but it's also possible that you could write some custom code. So for example, a use case that we see relatively frequently is where people are doing multi-factor authentication and they need to retrieve some code that's sent via text or email, or even some codes that are generated from one-time systems. And we have a number of different integrations that support that. So we can read from an email system and grab that code and then put it into a test. We have code that you can use in a test that will simulate. So if you use the Google Authenticator, for example, we have code that does similar logic that you can use in a test. So hopefully that answered your question. Here's another question from an anonymous attendee. For parallel execution, what type of hardware requirements are needed? It's hard to say, specifically. In reality, you've got to see what sort of load your tests put on your test system, and that's really where this parallelism that I demonstrated today comes in that you may have a system that's very highly provisioned, and it can already run your that one system can run your test suite fast enough if you put it into the sort of single session parallelism that we have had for a while. On the other hand, you may find that no one of the nodes in your test environment is powerful enough to do that, and that's where the parallelism that I showed today comes in valuable, because you can now split that test into multiple sessions and devote particular systems to them. I've got another question online about what are the machine requirements in case we want to run 15 parallel test cases. And again, I wish I could give you a hard and fast rule, and this is from an anonymous person. I wish I could give you a hard and fast rule. It's going to depend on the complexity of your test cases, and you're going to have to trial it and see how it goes.
All right, thank you so much for having joined today. Everyone will be sending out the webinar recording shortly across all of our social channels and via email. So don't hesitate to reach out, send us questions on forum, on our social channels, etc. And look forward to seeing you in future webinars. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.